Alright, it's that time again. It is time for another TBR video. This time for the month of December, where I not only actually continue some series that I have been putting off for several months, but also because I have a problem, I'm starting more. Okay, so a couple different things going on here. This is in no particular order at the moment because I don't know what order I'm going to read these in yet. I don't know. Haven't decided. But I will be continuing the Dresden Files with Death Masks. Now, I have loved all four of the books so far to varying degrees. They've all been very fun. I still believe that Grave Peril is my current favorite. Obviously, if you don't know anything about the Dresden Files, this is about a wizard named Harry Dresden. It is an urban fantasy set in the city of Chicago, which is a modern day Chicago with fantasy elements, much like Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Supernatural. This is sort of set in a modern day setting, but with fantasy and fantastical elements. Now, Harry is an investigator. He works with the police. He's kind of like a special investigation unit almost. He's in the phone book as a wizard. So he works with the police often. He works with various fantastical creatures, fairies, vampires, demons, warlocks, you name it. It's fantastic. These books are hilarious. Some of the greatest comedy and fantasy that I've read. Not only Harry, who I absolutely love. He's one of my favorite fantasy characters that I'm currently reading. But side characters are fantastic as well. And the world really started to grow with Grave Peril and Into Summer Night, which I didn't like quite as much as Grave Peril. But he's really expanding the universe that he's created here. He being Jim Butcher, of course. With the Never Never, which is kind of like the underworld or like parallel universe where a bunch of baddies live. But this is great. The magic is super kind of fast and loose. It's magic. He creates spells, he casts them. There's no real like hard system that I've found yet, but it's a great time. They're pretty short books. They're a great palate cleanser, as folks like to say, but not in a derogatory term because these books are fantastic while being short, but they're concise, good stories all the way through. Some of the most interesting and fun characters that I've read. Battles are always fun. Tons of witty, actually funny dialogue, unlike some other authors that I've read a lot of this year who can't write most humor to save their life. Not talking about anybody in particular. But this series is gigantic, and I've been meaning to get back to it and read one or two Dresden Files books a month. And now that I am caught up on the Stormlight Archive and the entirety of the Cosmere, I can go to other things. Next up, Holy Sister, Book 3 of the Book of the Ancestor trilogy by Mark Lawrence. Now, this was a series that I started, it's been a couple months now. Red Sister was fantastic. I love the introduction to this assassin sort of school/academy that Nona Gray goes to, who is our main protagonist. Definitely a heavy amount of violence, while there's also a good portion of these books focuses just on the school itself and the relationships that these characters are building with each other. Nona is a fantastic protagonist to follow. While she does have, kind of a shaky past, and she is rather violent when she needs to be, she's also incredibly heartfelt and caring to those around her and genuinely wants to be friends with people, and has been heartbroken and kind of let down by people or turned on by people so many times that it's very hard for her to trust those around her. But very interesting story. The magic system, the path, is super interesting and kind of loose and mysterious, almost like abstract in a way. It's kind of hard to picture. It's one of those completely like opposite of Allomancy, where it's very hard magic. Like, these are the rules. This is what happens when you do this. This is what happens when you use this metal. The path is very abstract. You almost just, everybody probably pictures it differently in their mind. So it's kind of hard to explain, but it's very interesting. The combat is visceral and well written. And Mark Lawrence, I mentioned this in my Red Sister review, he has a way of writing where it's not completely purple prose. It's not very flowery, while also not being completely basic and straightforward. He blends the two very well, and every once in a while he'll hit you with something that reads like poetry, and it's gorgeous, and I love it. Now, this is the only Mark Lawrence that I've had under my belt, and I'm looking forward to finishing this trilogy because I do have Girl in the Stars somewhere in there. that I got signed when I bought that. I'm looking forward to continuing in this world because I know that series takes place after this one in the same universe. And I'm also looking forward to getting into his other works as well. And the last series in this video that I'm getting back to, and I cannot believe it took me this long, and yes, it's another gigantic book, but the word count on these is actually a lot less. This is like the same width of a Stormlight book, but they read pretty fast. There is not 1,200 pages, certainly. But that would be... That was loud. Ruin by John Gwynne, who kicks ass at writing fantasy. This is not a streamlined version of a fantasy world such as the Wheel of Time, but you get a lot of the same feelings where there's no fat to this. There are no lengthy paragraphs of description. He tells you what you need to know, while also kind of being a master class of growing a fantasy world, writing interesting and dynamic characters, writing fantastic combat. I mentioned in, I believe, both Malice and Valor reviews that I did, it reminded me so much of Vikings, which makes total sense because John Gwynne is like a literal Viking in real life. He looks like this, which is fantastic and awesome, but he writes fantastic action. The battles in these books are great. They feel real. They're a little bit smaller scale, at least through the first two books. They're not gigantic, epic scale battles yet. He does not give a shit about killing main characters. He will break your heart at every turn. If you care about somebody, you better brace yourself because he will kill people. The stakes are definitely high in these books. And this is one of those series where, as shaky as a little bit of Malice was for me, Valor literally stepped up every single aspect of it. Character work, world building, action, pacing, dialogue, lore, everything was so much better from Malice to Valor. And everybody that I've spoken to in Discord and YouTube and all over the internet says that they only get better. I mean, Petrick has this as like his top tier fantasy, which really has me hyped for the rest of the series because Ruin and Wrath are probably going to knock me on my ass. And I'm going to want to go immediately into Of Blood and Bone, which is the second trilogy. I think it's 3 books. It might be 4. Series that takes place after this. And the guy is writing another fantasy series that I believe is Viking-centric. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And hopefully I can read it early. Next up, we have a shorter series. There is at least 1 sequel. I don't know if it's going to be 3 or not. I apologize. But over on Patreon, for high-tier patrons, every other month, you all decide at least 1 book to vote on for me to read. Now, this month, when I asked everybody, it was a tie. So I'm reading both. So, first up, Nicholas Eames's Kings of the Wyld. Now, I know there is a sequel, Bloody Rose. I don't know if there's a 3rd book or if that is coming along. Probably should have paid attention to that before I made this video. Moving on. This book, I have heard fantastic things about. People tell me that it's action-packed, it's paced beautifully, it's hilarious. This is basically a band getting back together, both in the sense of a fantasy world where it almost reads like an old D&D campaign is getting back for, one last ride. You've got all these lovable characters, interesting plot, and also this book, I guess, I don't know how directly it is, but I keep hearing like music-related things. Like this has a heavy metal inspiration to it. Now, I don't know if that's directly like he's going to be name-dropping bands or like people are going to be named after bands of the 80s or songs, things like that, or if it just kind of is fantasy mixed with heavy metal. I don't know exactly what I'm picturing here, but I know these books come highly regarded, highly recommended from pretty much everybody that I've talked to, and I'm just looking forward to this fun, epic D&D campaign, which I eat that up all day long. I play tons of CRPGs, so I am fully aware and down for just a classic D&D style campaign. I love that, and if it has actually good, well-written comedy and interesting characters, this is going to be a blast for me to read. And I will definitely pick up Bloody Rose as soon as I'm done with this, because I'm expecting to love this book. Now, I've had a few people say they don't think I would, but everything I hear about this sounds like it's right up my alley, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Definitely looking forward to that one, and I will be reading that in December as well. Last, but certainly not least, is another, like I said, looks about as thick as a Stormlight book. It's not. It's several hundred pages shorter than any Stormlight book, but it's a thick, thick boy. And this, of course, is The Forgetting Moon, written and signed by fellow booktuber and awesome author, from what I hear, Brian Lee Durfee, who has just the coolest signature you've ever seen. Anyway, this is another epic, thick, descriptive, adult fantasy book, and I am very much looking forward to it. I have several folks in the Discord that have been reading it and loving it, and I believe they are either about to start or have already started The Blackest Heart, which is book 2. I will be catching up with you guys in December and reading this one. All I really know about this is it gets compared a lot to John Gwynne and Faithful and the Fallen. That's perfect, because if I get that plus more description and violence, I'm sold. Like, that's all I need to know. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Brian Lee Durfee writes his characters and his story. I am eager for more fantasy. I love these thick epics like this, and I know he is working on book 3. That will be sometime next year, maybe, possibly. Get it to me early. And I'm just looking forward to it. I mean, I love talking to Brian. He's an awesome guy. His channel is hilarious. His reviews are awesome. We talk about him probably on a daily basis just because he's just such a fun person. And I want to see what his writing is like. I've heard nothing but good things about it, so definitely looking forward to that. And of course, if anybody wants to join in on any of these, whether you're reading Faithful and the Fallen and you're on the same book as I am and you want to read along, or you want to do sort of a buddy read or read along with Kings of the Wyld or Forgetting Moon, any of these, please let me know. Jump in Discord, talk to me about it, drop in the comments down below. Let me know if you want to do it that way. But totally down to just kind of read along with people and enjoy this experience together. But that is my December TBR, so I would love to know what is on your TBR. I don't know if everybody plans theirs out. I usually do about a month ahead. I'm not one of those people that plans like months or years in advance. I have 300 or so books on my TBR for eventual read, and that's just like the first of series, so there's a ton of books that I need to catch up on. But this is my December TBR, so I would love to know your thoughts on it and what you're reading. But like and subscribe, as always. Join the Patreon if you do want to support the channel and what I do here. That is always optional, but always appreciated, of course. Please jump in Discord or leave me a comment down below. Let me know exactly what you're reading, what you're up to. And just if you want to continue the conversation, it will happen over there. But until next time, everybody, keep reading.